Alrighty, so new main event. It's Kevin Holland stepping in for Darren Till versus Marvin Vettori at 185. So Kevin Holland isn't a big 185er. I think he walks around at like 190, 195, so, weight cut won't be a problem. He is taking the fight on 2 weeks' notice, so, not much time to game plan for Kevin Holland, but, Kevin Holland's normally the guy that you're game planning for, and I believe that's what Vettori is going to have to adjust to. Vettori is a very good fighter. He's on a 4-fight win streak at the moment over, legit fighters. And he's very hungry and he's very well-rounded. So, yeah, let's have a look into the fight here. And worth mentioning as well, Kevin Holland does have a 3-inch height advantage and a 7-inch reach advantage. So, he's quite long for the division. And yeah, he's been very active as well. I think he fights on average like every 2 months or something. It's crazy. But how many improvements is he making from fight camp to fight camp? Or is he just, getting in shape and just kind of focusing on one opponent and, kind of styling his camp towards that one opponent and not making too many technical or just improvements to his overall game, or just working on his overall game. But anyway, we'll break down the striking of these two. Alright, so for Kevin Holland, he's very loose on the feet, he's very comfortable in the octagon. He fights super long. When he's versing southpaws though, he kind of, he steps into range a lot. He seems to have trouble finding his distance. He'll go for, step in 1-2s, the step in inside low kick, just a lot of offense that he needs to close the distance for. And he can walk into takedowns, which we saw in the Derek Brunson fight. Every time he stepped in, pretty much Brunson was going to clinch up, and he had to know that was the game plan of Brunson, to clinch every time he steps into distance. But he kept doing it the whole fight. And also teep at distance against southpaws is very nice. And yeah, worth mentioning, Vettori is a southpaw. The majority of his stand-up is based around that straight left hand. Sometimes he'll throw it in a combination, but a lot of the time he's just looking to, kind of snipe with it. He'll throw it naked quite a lot. Just when he sees the opening, he'll just, open up with it. But he's definitely more effective on the front foot. Get Vettori on the back foot if you get him kind of thinking about your offense, or you start feinting and, making him think about things. He isn't as effective, and that's how Adesanya slowed him down. That's how Hermansson slowed him down for a little bit, and then Vettori got back on his pressure and ended up taking over from there. But Holland doesn't really throw too many feints, and he also, he has a lot of techniques, but he can go to the well like too many times when he does have success with one technique. As we saw in the Brunson fight, he was just stepping in 1-2 every time. It was very predictable, and Brunson was clinching him up every single time. Pretty much how he lost the fight. But yeah, Vettori, he has a nice body kick versus orthodox opponents. He'll, take these really short steps into range. It's kind of a tell when he's going to be throwing that naked right, is when he takes those short steps, started stepping into range. And that's, kind of a tell. That's when he wants to throw that naked too. Also, if Holland misses on his 1-2s, Vettori has a nice slip too. And, Holland is used to the look. He's faced 5 southpaws in his 13 UFC fights, so, it's not going to be a foreign look for him. One thing Vettori does that I don't love is that he'll lean back to avoid strikes when he's on the back foot. So if Holland gets him on the back foot and then starts throwing the 1-2, I could see him having some success with that maybe, or just extending his combinations. Alright, so in the grappling, so for Vettori, he's more of an offensive grappler. He will, drive a double onto the fence, look to take him down from there, attack a single in a scramble. If his takedown gets stuffed by Holland, he will look for the single, look to get back to his feet, and then drive a single from there. But yeah, Vettori has good scrambles. He has decent scrambles. He's very well rounded. But when he does get on top, he looks to get in half guard, looks to control from there, and then land short ground and pound, like he did against Carl Roberson. And, Holland off his back. He before the Bronson fight, I thought he was very scrambly and very, very active off his back. But he didn't show any of that in the Bronson fight. Even when Bronson started posturing up to land ground and pound and elbows. But, Bronson, for the most part, just gave him no room and completely nullified Kevin Holland on the ground. So yeah, if you get really tight on him, I guess that he doesn't really know how to counter it, and then you can just control him from there. But he will go for that guillotine when you shoot a double leg on him. It is pretty low percentage, unless you're like Brian Ortega or, who else? Pedro Munoz. It isn't a very high percentage move, and it usually ends you in an inferior position. So for Kevin Holland as well, he gives his back to get up pretty much every time, but also he is very comfortable off his back. And good examples of that is the Bronson fight and also the Thiago Santos fight. He just kind of didn't have really any urgency to get off his back. Thiago Santos was landing bombs on him. So how these guys win fights or how they beat their opponents. Kevin Holland has a very good chin and he's very comfortable in the cage. You're not going to get him nervous. You're not going to get him tensed up in the early stages of a fight. He's very loose in there. For Marvin Vettori, he's got great cardio, good volume as well. I was really impressed with his volume in the Hermansson fight. He's a very well-rounded fighter. When he's on the front foot is when I think he's doing his best work. If you do get him backing up, he is much less effective. And also, he's very durable as well. He's never been finished in his career, and I'm not sure if he's ever been hurt in the UFC. He's never been dropped for sure. Izzy did land that step-in elbow on him, I believe, but he didn't look that hurt to me. The commentators were saying he's hurt, but I disagree. I don't think it hurt him at all. But yeah, whatever. Neither here nor there. Alright, how these guys lose fights. For Vettori, we've already talked about it. It's when he's passive and when he's waiting. Yeah, we've already talked about it. So it's when people start feinting on him, start giving him different things to look at. Holland doesn't really do that. For Kevin Holland, he has terrible takedown defense. He has poor fight IQ, especially when it comes to engaging in grappling situations. And also, I think he slows in the third in high-paced fights, which is what Vettori's going to give him. I get that he didn't slow in the Bronson fight, but he literally wasn't doing anything. He was just lying on his back. Like, he wasn't trying to get up to his feet. He wasn't scrambling, going for offense off his back. He was just lying there. But also, it's the mentality of Kevin Holland. And, that was on full display at, after the fight. He said, he didn't care about winning, and, that's not great to hear from a fighter. And I feel sorry for the people who put money on him, because that is something we should know beforehand. If you're going to put money on that guy. But yeah, it's like, that's just not a great thing to say. And it's not going to change in 2 weeks. He's not going to come in with this fresh new mentality and just go to war with Vettori or, push that extra mile to get, if it's 2-2 in the 5th round, I think I know I'm going to put my money on. So yeah, it's just, it is what it is. Alright, pass to victory for these two. For Kevin Holland, use some feints, keep it rangy, keep it teeps, keep it jabs. Don't lunge in, but I just know he's going to do the opposite of everything I just said. So, yeah. For Vettori, you could probably take him on the feet, but in my opinion, the path of least resistance is the wrestling, obviously. Double leg when he comes lunging in, engage in the clinch often, and then look for trips in the clinch. Once you do get on top, look to sit in half guard, might as well pass his guard to half guard, and then look for some ground and pound from there, and eventually he'll give his back. Then you can, look for the rear naked choke from there, whatever. On the feet, look to close distance, look to double up on the jabs, look to double up on the twos maybe. Because he will be leaning back. That's just what he does. He uses that Philly shell defense. So, you can catch him leaning back on the feet. But in my opinion, path of least resistance, the grappling, obviously. Alright, so overall, Vettori, he can be a little hot-headed and come in with a bit of a chip on his shoulder, but he's got a good corner behind him that will provide him with a good game plan to take on Holland. If it was just Vettori in the arena by himself against Holland, and Holland start trash talking him and getting his head, I'd imagine they'd start brawling, because I wouldn't think it's hard to get in Vettori's head. But Kaderi will set him straight after round 1 if he strays away from the game plan, but usually does come in with a good game plan involving his wrestling when he's versing these strikers, like Carl Roberson or Israel Adesanya. So I imagine he'll do the same thing here. Yeah, so aside from a random head kick or a random submission, like if he, clips Vettori, has him rocked and goes for the sub there, I don't think Holland has much of a chance here. I think Vettori will outwork him on the feet and dominate him in the grappling exchanges. He'll also dominate the later rounds if it does get to that point. I could definitely see some 10-8s in rounds 4 and 5. But yeah, even earlier than that as well. I think it should be a dominant victory for the Italian. And, in my opinion, I think it would be a shame if Holland wins. Just because, Vettori, he's a guy who puts a lot of work into his craft and he wants to be the champs, really badly. He's a really competitive guy. He's obviously got a chip on his shoulder, whereas Holland, he just doesn't really give a shit. And, this is just personally my opinion, just with the, the type of morals I have. But yeah, just before the Bronson fight, I had a few assumptions of him, and they were pretty much all confirmed in that Bronson fight. So, yeah, not the biggest fan of him, or his attitude in general. Him as a fighter, he's an interesting fighter. I'll give him that, but just him as, or just his attitude, not a huge fan. Alright, but we will go to the betting lines. Let's have a look. Alright, so Vettori, obviously a sizable favourite. It's around, I think, 70, it's over 75% that he's favoured here. I think that's about correct, actually. I think I would even favour Vettori even around 80%. Yeah, aside from the scenarios that I was talking about before, the finishing scenarios, I don't think Holland has a chance here. But yeah, I'm not rushing to bet him at $1.30. I got it was a rumored fight before this, and my book in Australia opened it up at $1.41 for Vettori in the unconfirmed rumor fight section, and I took that. Might as well if the fight does come into fruition, and yeah, finally has. So I'm pretty happy with that line. I'm actually not against putting him in a multi or a parlay at $1.30 or minus 333 or minus 330. Yeah, I think he wins a good chunk of the time, and I think he wins over 80% of the time. So yeah, but let's have a look at the props anyway. Holland, Vettori wins inside the distance. Yeah, I think he wins by sub, but I'm not looking to bet that. Vettori's not that much of a finisher. Excuse me. Yeah, those lines are about straight up in my opinion. Yeah, so yeah, this should be an interesting fight nonetheless. But yeah, I think Vettori gets it done. I think he gets it done by submission or a TKO in round 4 or 5. So if you have to make me pick one prediction, I'd probably just say Vettori sub round 4.